welcome back to The Good Life, which to me is all about cooking for family and friends. And now that the weather's getting colder, I think some of us like to cook the better comfort foods that we've grown up with or we just love to share with people. And tonight's recipe will be sauerkraut. But now some of you might think sauerkraut is that awful stuff you get in a bag or a jar and it's just really tart and just kind of too sour to eat. Well, this recipe that I'm going to be making for you tonight is, it has apples and onions and white wine, brown sugar, a number of other things. It's going to go into it and it's going to cook in the oven with bratwurst. So all that together is going to meld and it's going to be fabulous, and even better, it's going to be great the next night. So this is a great do-ahead dish, or it's a good dish to have just any old cold night of the year. So let us get started. Right now I've got a skillet on the stove. It has medium-high heat on, and so I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil in the skillet and start browning the bratwurst. What this is it's just right from it's actually the freezer section that I thawed out, but it's raw bratwurst. If you can get that at your grocery store, that way we'll render some of the fat, and then when we start to brown the onions, it'll absorb all that flavor. So let's get that started. I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil in it, just to start the juices going. And we have 5 bratwurst in this packet. Sometimes I'll do pork chops. Bone-in pork chops are even better, because bones always mean flavor, but we just have 5 bratwurst. We're just going to let that brown a little bit. It will be in the background. And the next thing we want to do, meanwhile, you want to have your sauerkraut draining. That's why I have it in a colander and I have it over a little dish. But what I did is I emptied the packet. I think this is a 1 pound, the larger bag. You can get the small bag and the large bag in your grocery store. This is the larger bag of sauerkraut without the caraway seeds, because we'll be adding that ourselves. And I just kind of squish it through the colander, and then I let it sit over this dish. And any other extra juice that comes out, great. And that way we'll have more concentrated flavor of everything else we want in here, and it won't be diluted too much with the sauerkraut juice. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to dice the onions. I'm going to dice the apple, and we want them each to be 1/4-inch cubes. And this is a medium to large size onion, and a nice crisp apple, kind of sweet, kind of crisp, and we're going to get that started and then we'll be right back. Okay, the brats have been cooking for about 4 or 5 minutes now. We're going to check to see how brown they are on one side. You don't want to cook them all the way through. You're just trying to caramelize them on one side a little bit. Then we're going to flip them over, brown them a little bit more, and then that's just going to add to the flavor, but you're going to finish it in the oven. So for right now, we're just going to check one side. Look at that. This is what you're looking for. You want a nice caramelization, because it's going to add to all that good flavor that we're going to get out of everything else that's going to mix into it. So we'll flip it over. That looks really good. Okay, and then we're going to continue with the apple. So we have our onion. It's all like a nice dice, kind of small to medium. And now we're just going to get 1/4-inch dice from the apple, and just prepare everything to go into the skillet before we put it all in the oven. It could be a rough chop, to tell you the truth, but this is good. Okay, so put that aside. We'll check on the bratwurst again. Perfect. Look at that, the other side, perfectly brown. So now we're going to take this out and then put a little bit more olive oil in the skillet, and then start with the onions, and we're all going to add the layers of flavor as it all comes together. So just to get a little bit of flavor, We're going to soften them, and they will collect up all those wonderful juices and the brown bits from the sausage. You can see they're turning color already. So I'm just going to let this hang out a little bit and let it sweat out, soften, and bring their juices together. Alright, this is really good. This has been cooking for about 5 or 6 minutes. It's got nicely browned. And now I'm going to add the brown sugar. We have about 1.5 tablespoons of brown sugar. And we have about 1 tablespoon of brown mustard. I wouldn't go with the yellow mustard. Go with the brown mustard. It's more mild and has better depth of flavor. So I happen to have my favorite homemade mustard here. And about 1 tablespoon. Okay, now we're going to add some caraway seeds. Say 1.5 teaspoons. That gets that nice German flavor coming in here. All sauerkraut needs caraway seeds. Look at that, being nice and brown. It's getting up all those flavors that the sausage sweat out. Now to this, we're going to add our apples. We want that mixed in before we add the sauerkraut. So the apples don't need to be cooked so much here. I'm just trying to mix it in. They're going to continue to cook when I put it in the oven. I have the oven set at 375, and when all this comes together, we're going to put it in the oven for about 40 minutes. The next item that we are layering in here is the sauerkraut. You can see it's fairly dry. It's been dripping dry for a little while. So we'll just try to incorporate that in with everything else, get it nicely distributed. And so now the onions that will sweeten with their cooking, and the apples that are sweet, the brown sugar, it's all going to balance the very sour sauerkraut. And it is going to be so nice served with those brats. And of course you need mashed potatoes on the side. So, it's all incorporated nicely. So the next thing we're going to do is take the brats that we had on the side there, kind of dig them in, let them get sort of nicely cozy with the sauerkraut. Okay? Any kind of juices that may have gotten out. Alright? And the last thing we do before we put it in the oven, we have a dry white wine. This is a Chardonnay. We want to make sure that it's wet enough. So once you see the juice coming up, the Chardonnay is coming up and you see it puddling, that is enough. I'd say it's about a cup or so. Now we're going to take this and put it in our oven for about 40 minutes. Okay, Dracula says it's ready, so it must be ready. Let's Take it out of the oven. Let's see how fabulous it looks. Wow, oh my gosh, look at that. It's been in there for about 30 or 40 minutes and it looks really good. It soaked up the juices from the wine and it got all those flavors of the sweets and sours together, so it's going to be really good. So I'm going to go over and plate it and let you see me eat it. Okay, now the final results. Look at this. This is one of my favorite meals in the whole wide world. When it starts getting cold outside, I am dying to make sauerkraut with bratwurst and mashed potatoes. I'm not even a sausage person. I don't love pork. I love this dish. And of course on the side I have to have a little bit of my homemade mustard. So here goes. Let's... a little bite of everything. We have a little bit of the sauerkraut, some of the mashed potatoes, scoop up a little bit of the mustard. It's still a little hot. I don't want to... It's typical of me to burn myself. If I'm not cutting myself, I'm burning myself. I love this dish. This really should make a sauerkraut lover out of everybody that you know. If they're ever in doubt, please try to make this. The tartness of the mustard goes so well with the mellowness. I mean really, the sauerkraut has mellowed so much because of the brown sugar, the apple, the onions. All of that becomes sweet when you cook it. You're browning it in your skillet, then you add the sauerkraut, the wine. If you don't want to add wine, you could add chicken stock, vegetable stock, probably an apple juice. It would all be so great with this. Bring all those flavors together. This is fall. Happy October, everybody. Please try this. I hope you do. Buon Appetito.